So I watched Moon Knight. Now, in case you don't know, Moon Knight is a new Disney Plus show that is set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the MCU, and it revolves around a superhero called Moon Knight, starring Oscar Isaac, who you might know as Poe Dameron from Star Wars. By the way, this video is going to be full of spoilers about the show, so if you haven't seen it yet and plan on, you should probably stop watching this video now. So going into the series, I had zero idea of what it was going to be about since I'd never really even heard about the character. I only got interested because the trailer showed Oscar Isaac pulling off a really good British accent, and that was kind of what got me hooked into it in the first place. I am a big MCU fan, however, so I do know most of the lore. I've seen the new shows such as Loki, WandaVision, though I have been slacking a bit since the beginning of Phase 4 because I have yet to see some of the newer movies such as Eternals or Black Widow. I have seen some of the more important ones though, like I straight up went to the cinema at 7 AM with my friends to see No Way Home when it came out. Now I also saw the new Doctor Strange movie that just came out, both in 4D and in IMAX 3D. So I'm not completely out of the MCU yet. But yeah, I basically came into watching Moon Knight with no expectations and no idea about what the show is about even. And I've taken the liberty to document my thoughts throughout watching the series for you to see.
Alright, I'm about to start watching Moon Knight, which will be the first show that I get into in months. So yeah, have a look. Moon Knight Season 1. The first episode, The Goldfish Problem. I hope I like this.
And sure enough, I did.
Whoa. So I just finished the first episode and first impressions are, wow, that was really good. For what it was, it didn't feel like a superhero movie. Especially not one in the MCU. Now let me just say I know nothing about Moon Knight. I know no lore, no anything. So I'm coming into this very fresh, very untapped. But yeah, I'm just left so confused.
Yeah, the first episode really throws you into the deep end.
What part of that first episode was real versus what was a dream? And it ended on a cliffhanger too, so yeah. Not to mention the cinematography on this and the way it was directed. This was really well put together. And that was just the first episode, so let's see how this progresses.
Overall, the first episode left me really excited about what's to come. Like I mentioned, the cinematography on that first episode was really good. You can tell that they put a lot of attention to the details. Random shots such as that Rubik's Cube being thrown in the air, or even the reflections in all the puddles. Those were just tiny things that stood out to me because how well they were shot. The concept of the whole living a double life thing, which I later found out to be that Steven, the main character in the episode, having DID or dissociative identity disorder. Actually, it's Mark Spector who has it, but we don't know that yet at this point of the show. Not to mention the way that they transition between Steven and Mark with that big rush of adrenaline and sudden blinking. That was really well shown. And they did a pretty good job of making you feel for Steven. He was a character that felt raw and vulnerable, since he's obviously lonely and doesn't have his life together, especially if he has to tie himself to a pillar at night, not knowing why he's moving around. But yeah, the first episode left me hungry. And episode 2 wasn't much different. It was equally impressive cinematography-wise, showing more of the reflection motif in different forms. However, it definitely felt slower than the first episode as they began to dig deeper into the plot. In this episode, we get to see the Scarab be an important component to the plot. And most importantly, we get to know Layla, who was Mark's soon-to-be ex-wife, though they never ended up divorcing. At least not in this show.
Okay, so I just finished episode 3. Episode 3 was definitely better than episode 2, but there's still so many things I don't get. So many things I haven't explained yet. Like, how did Steven get into this whole mess? And whose body is it originally? Because from what I'm getting is that this is Steven's body that Mark hijacked, that Khonshu is also hijacking. Where did Mark come from? Or is it Mark's body?
So at this point of the show, I feel like some of the unanswered questions were being dragged out a bit too much. You can see the confusion in my face about some of the core pieces of the plot regarding Mark and Steven sharing a body. And while I do think it's cool when stories slowly unravel themselves over time in this way, I feel like they left us, I don't know, with too many questions and not enough answers, especially this long into the show.
And what's the significance of the suit? Like, where did that come from? They keep saying summon the suit as if it's like, whose power is that? Is that Mark's power or is that Khonshu's power? I assume it's Khonshu's power, right?
Now I do like how they didn't overload us with a long like origin story for Moon Knight. The origin story was actually revealed later in the series. But it does come with the consequences of leaving viewers like me very confused about what's going on and how Mark can summon the suit out of nowhere. Like, that wasn't really explained. I know it's from Khonshu's like help, but still. What is the significance of the suit?
And that whole thing where they like move the sky so that the constellation from 2000 years ago appeared. Wouldn't that event itself be so notable in the world's history that like it should that what just happened there should cross over in other MCU movies or shows at some point, right?
Okay, I know that none of what I just said made any sense, but don't blame me, it was late at night. But basically, I was just saying that the action of moving the sky backwards 2,000 years like that should be a huge thing that has to have had massive effects around the world, right? And all the characters in the MCU on Earth had to have seen that too, right? But will it ever be referenced again? Because they seem to brush it off, even within this show.
I feel like the sky turning around 2,000 years back should cause stuff like earthquakes and tsunamis and all of that. Because doesn't that like affect the gravitational pull of stuff? I know this is all fictional, but like still, you know. How can they just let that slide?
Yes, I know this is all fictional, but logically, the least that could have happened was that it was something that was witnessed by everyone around the world, and it had to be significant enough to be at least referenced again later in the MCU, which we'll just have to wait and see. Everyone in the show acted as if it was just casual that the night sky was spinning with no adverse effects. I don't know, it's something that they just brushed off so easily within the show, and that really frustrated me.
Yeah, I don't know. This episode was definitely better than episode 2, because episode 2 felt like it was slowing down quite a lot after episode 1, an amazing episode 1. But I'm still very confused.
That pretty much sums up my thoughts halfway through the series. But skip to the 4th episode where Mark and Steven finds Alexander the Great's tomb and corpse, which houses Amit, who Harrow has been looking for this whole time. And then Harrow shoots Mark and Steven in the chest without hesitation, which led to this.
Right, young man.
What is going on? I can't tell whether this is the future or the afterlife.
Right.
I am so confused.
Yeah, the whole afterlife component of the show was cool, but also weird. It was a really cool way of portraying the afterlife, well, the pre-afterlife, throughout episodes 4 and on. It allowed us to see the physical forms of Mark and Steven interacting with each other, which was very well and naturally shot. And it was also interesting to see their traumatic memories, which basically provided their origin story, specifically as to how Steven was created as well as how Mark and Khonshu got together. And seeing Mark's younger brother in that room of people that he's killed, that was really heartbreaking. But with all that said, I could not get over the talking hippo, who was a goddess named Tarouet. I really couldn't take her seriously. I'm not sure exactly how the writers were really envisioning her, and whether or not her portrayal in this show is accurate to the comics. If this is how she was in the comics, then so be it, I guess. But I was not a big fan of her witty personality, especially since every other god and goddess in the show had a sense of like grandeur and But what I did like at this point of the show was how Layla was taking more of a lead. Despite Tarouet begging Layla to be her avatar, she was determined to kill Harrow herself. And seeing Steven go full badass mode when fighting all those people on the boat in the desert in the pre-afterlife, that showed a lot of character growth on his end. And it was really sad when he fell off the boat and Mark ended up going to heaven by himself. Overall, episodes 4 and 5 were really plot driven rather than focusing on the aesthetics and cool visual shots. To me, this made these episodes more juicy but less of an eye catcher. But what about the final episode?
So I just finished the show and I have to oh wait, after credit scene. I have no idea what's going on, but I have a feeling that This is a link to the rest of the MCU.
Meet my friend, Jake Lockley.
Is that Khonshu's new avatar? Wait. Oh, wait. Oh, Jake Lockley must be the guy who hijacked the body right at that final battle scene. Right when Harrow was about to kill Mark and Steven, and then they blacked out, and then all of a sudden Harrow was almost dead. It must have been that Jake Lockley guy. Oh, wait, but then who's Jake Lockley? Is he another character that Mark made up? And why does he speak Spanish? This show is so confusing. And I can't tell what's real. What is that whole doctor's office setting? Is that real or not? There are so many questions that I feel like haven't been answered, and I still don't get how this links to the rest of the MCU. I hope sometime down the line that he appears in an Avengers movie or something, but there's so many questions. Yeah, not a bad show though.
So, my final thoughts on Moon Knight. It was a decent show. It had an engaging plot, it was beautifully shot, and it was overall just a really good show. I was hoping that last line would rhyme with plot and shot, but it was nice to see an MCU franchise that wasn't so America-focused. The Egyptian setting of this show, along with the Egyptian actors and filmmakers, added a really nice flavor to the show. And Layla's whole arc of becoming the superhero that she became with her Wonder Woman-like suit was also pretty epic. Of the Disney Plus MCU shows that are out now, I don't think I'd rate this as the best, but instead probably average. Which is still really good because it says a lot about how good the MCU shows have been thus far on Disney Plus. Though I haven't seen Hawkeye yet. Loki is still my favorite MCU show. If I had to pinpoint the main things I didn't particularly like about this show, one of them would have to be the bad CGI in the series. There are times when the CGI is good, but there are also times when, especially with the Egyptian gods, the CGI didn't look good at all in my opinion. Especially for 2022. The plot was also very confusing to the very end, which wasn't always, enjoyable. And lastly, the talking hippo. Yeah. But aside from that, I think it was a really cool show. I'd rate it a 6.5 Rarangs out of 10. Not bad. So yeah.